Greetings, Joseph Kursky here with you to talk about an amazing tool to visualize watersheds. I am a big proponent of teaching about water quality, water use, water conservation, watersheds, oceans, rivers, lakes, estuaries, marshes, wetlands, etc. And this URL right here, someone has taken the ESRI base mapping tools and other capabilities inside ArcGIS Online, as well as the watershed boundaries from the U.S. Geological Survey, where I used to work, and some other tools to enable anyone, teachers, students, the general public, to visualize watersheds across the U.S. It's a USGS data set, so it's only U.S. at this point in time. However, look at this. You can pan across rivers and see how much water or how much land is flowing. How much water from those lands is flowing to a specific point in Dodge City, Kansas, for example. It's a large piece of Colorado as well as a large piece of western Kansas. And you float around to other places and you see the very small watersheds. So looking at the Smoky Hill River, what's the watershed upstream from that location? Fascinating tool to teach about elevation, population, dependent on water, agriculture, industrial use, etc. As I snip around to different places in Colorado, I can see the Rio Grande versus the Colorado River watershed versus the North Platte/Platte system, the Arkansas, and how it changes depending on where I touch my mouse on my interactive mapping tool. Absolutely amazing tool that you can use to teach with. It could be a 10-minute activity. It could be a several class period activity. I would submit from upper elementary all the way to university level, there are things you can do with this tool. So, for example, inside a lesson on flood hazards of the Front Range of Colorado and also the construction of reservoirs in the 20th century, why were those reservoirs constructed, many of which are there because of flood control, because of past floods, talking about the pros and cons of building dams for flood control versus levees versus living in floodplains, and the relief of the land. So, for example, you can use this tool in conjunction with a trace downstream tool that you can run inside ArcGIS Online. There's also the watershed boundaries inside ArcGIS Online with little dotted brown symbols. I just think this is a wonderfully fantastic tool to teach with. I'm kind of going rapidly through here, but you could just focus on your own community, your own town, your own watershed, and what the size are of those watersheds, why they matter. Look at this place in North Dakota. There's a very small enclosed basin. That's one of the reasons why Devil's Lake has issues with its elevation. So you could use this tool in conjunction with your discussion on Devil's Lake and why it has flooded surrounding farmland and what we can do about it being an enclosed. Speaking of enclosed basins, the Great Basin, Utah, Nevada, parts of Oregon, if you pan across there with your mouse, you can see that those rivers do not escape the Great Basin, hence its name. But you get to southern Nevada, some places in Utah, and it flows down into the Colorado River. So small scale, large scale, it's another way of teaching about scale, isn't it? With this tool, what's it look like on the east coast of the U.S.? Why was New York destined to become a very large city? Well, because it drains a pretty large area in upstate New York. What about St. Louis? What about Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the junction of those two major rivers there, the Monongahela and the Allegheny, forming the Ohio River? Again, this fern leaf tool shows the power of web mapping tools for teaching and learning. Interactivity, where the students are investigating, they're answering questions that you, the instructor, pose. And if you're a student watching this, I invite you to check it out on your own. What kinds of things are you learning from this? What kinds of questions can you ask about your own watershed in your community, and why watersheds matter, and why water matters to commercial, industrial, residential, agricultural use? And if there's a flood or a drought, what areas are impacted based on where these rivers flow? It all comes down to physical geography, cultural geography, and resource use. So again, a marvelous tool. Look at these drainages in coastal Texas versus the lower Mississippi and why they have the shape that they do. I invite you to check out this tool and other interactive ways of learning and teaching content in our wonderful world. I stood on the Iowa watershed boundary not too long ago, and here you can see that west of the boundary it flows into the Missouri River, and east of this watershed boundary in Iowa it flows to the Mississippi. So there's a watershed boundary in the west central part of Iowa. Get out there and explore. Thanks for being with me.